we even start talking. So can't wait to launch this LinkedIn Live Hour of Empower today. If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're here every day with just the most wonderful people who are primarily you. So with that said, chat's open. The key word today is painting, and we're going to hope to redefine and expand what everybody sees and feels about painting. With that said, before the comments come in and chat's open, feel free. We depend on you for direction and advice. Here's Kelly. Kelly, why don't you say hello and bring some of your joy?
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from, or if you're watching the replay. I'm super stoked to be here on this, and I'm going to be completely transparent as per usual. When I first saw the word, my immediate thought was, ooh, paint, because I was thinking of the canvas. And then, of course, I was like, okay, that's just a surface thing about the 8 letters, but let's sit in it for a minute and dive in. And then, of course, you know me, I went deep. But my initial thought process, and this goes on, I'm not a big pop culture person, and it doesn't mean that, if you are, that's great. It's just not my jam. But something about Tina Turner's death yesterday, or I heard about it last evening, and it came to me this morning when I was thinking about painting again. And so I was like, because she's more than just a musician. She was an icon for domestic violence and bringing awareness. And now she's bringing it back to the forefront, even in her death. And my thought with it was she changed her painting and how she wanted her journey to look. And, leaving a domestic violence relationship, presenting herself and going out on her own. And I think it was till she was in her 50s or late 40s, 50-ish, that she reinvented herself yet again and exploded. But she's so much more than just a singer. And to me, it was hitting on the whole domestic violence thing, because back in her day, we didn't talk about it. And she gave light on it so that other people, I'm assuming, but I can speak for myself, that you kind of go, wow, it even happens to people like her, because money has nothing to do with happiness and success. Some of it creates all that monstrous, ugly pieces that you're in, but you can choose to pick another brush. And I thought that was super cool, how that came to me in that way. And then, of course, I went deeper because y'all know me. But I want to get right into Johanna and have her and what her thoughts are.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dawn, and it's great to see you here, Kelly. And yeah, I'm just a pastel painter. That's what I do, and I definitely dive in deep with words as well, especially with like the word painting, and we were just kind of discussing it too before we went live. But we all get to paint these pictures of our life, and we all get to, just paint the story of our life. And so I think it's a really good topic to discuss today and bring some creativity into the discussion. And so I'm just happy to be here.
Well, we're so pleased to have you here because, everybody does have a story, and everybody's story is important to them and a lesson book for so many other people who hear it. Because most of the stories are just like everybody else's stories, who people didn't think there was that many everybody else's out there, right? And then everybody's story becomes more popular than restrictive. And I think what we kind of gained from our pre going live discussion was that words are all what you make them, right? And also, words can make you, depending on how they're applied, how they're defined, and just the exercise of what we do here every day, I believe, has now made people reconsider some of their words they use, how they use them, how they feel about other people using them. So I think that's so important because that's a mindset change. what used to get you angry gets you fascinated now. What gets you maybe to move away from people is the vehicle to move towards people. And, just like every painting, it's a new vision of the painter, right? I mean, you could paint an owl today and an ocean tomorrow, and it's wherever you're at in your mind, not so much in your body. And I think that's another thing this lends itself to is the ease of access through that, that isn't common. And that's what this becomes, is uncommon, but in a way that's, wow, what a great way to get uplifted. What a great way to learn. And what a great way to see people who are learning, uplifting, happy. Kelle, what do you think about that?
Well, just to absolutely piggyback on that, I'm fascinated by the fact of here we have one word, and there's so many different interpretations that we all have, perceptions, and we may even reply to someone else's perception or interpretation of a word, but we're receiving it the way that we interpret it and perceive it. And I think this just allows us to open up our mind in such an awesome way, but it also shows us and reminds us like, hey, we have this many thoughts over one word. Now put that into a sentence, put that into a blog post, put that into a LinkedIn post. I mean, it opens your mind to be like, this isn't going to be perceived the way I intend, but it's also reminding us that, well, but hey, that's a different perspective I've never thought of. And opening your mind in a way to not defend it or hit it with defensiveness because it's not your thinking. And the other thing, in the literal sense of painting, years ago, did a team building little girls' night out at one of those twisted painting places. You bring your snacks and your beverages of choice, and they have a pre-made painting that they're going to go through. So you sit down in front of this great big canvas, and I looked at the finished product and I was like, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I was more focused on the task. I wasn't focused on my creativity, because you have to follow along because they do it by steps. And it actually came out much better than I anticipated. And I added my creativity at the very end. And thinking back on it now, I was like, well, that was just a task to a goal of having my picture look like her picture. And that to me isn't true painting. Because then I had another girlfriend who is a fantastic soul coach. And she invited me over with some of her clients, but we're going to have a paint day. Like, oh, that sounds awesome, but I don't have anything to paint with. She's like, oh, don't worry about it. We have everything. And she was like, do you have an easel? And I was like, girl, I just said I have nothing in painting. I didn't have a brush the day before I had an easel. So I showed up, and the easels were all in. They had all kinds of paints and cards to draw inspiration from. And I, of course, went to this card that had these very large pearls on it. So it was just a super up close image of pearls. So you see the iridescent, all the detail work. And I think I'm always drawn to pearls because pearls before swine is one of my favorite things. But what happened is I looked at it and I was like, well, I don't need to paint this. I'm just going to paint how it makes me feel, my interpretation of it. That, to me, was true painting, because I was using my what I was seeing into a painting. And quite honestly, I felt so proud of that when I was finished, because it is a self-reflection. And it's so much more than just a canvas. I mean, and to go even another level, it's used for emotional treatment of veterans, as an example. And I'm proud of that because it is Memorial Day weekend coming up here very soon. So those are my thoughts this round. And I would love everyone in the chat, let us know what your initial thought was of what the word painting meant to you. Because I think that'll be important to keep this going and open it up even broader. So with that said, I will turn it over to you, Johanna.
All right, cool. Well, you like sparked so many ideas right there, but I'll just start with like the most recent one. But Yeah, I really also liked your post about it painting being so therapeutic. It really is. It's crazy to see. I actually have like a psychology background, and I'm kind of dabbling in whether I want to get into art therapy or not. But it's crazy to see the kind of visceral reactions from painting in a therapeutic setting, whether it's how we identify or perceive color. We were just talking about how we might perceive different words, but how we identify and see color or shapes and things like that, and how it can really open our minds up to healing from really anything. And also, I just kind of wanted to talk about what like leads me to what we were kind of talking about too earlier, is that like painting in a sense is a verb. It's a doing word, right? And the thought of being present in creating something like in that moment is what I think is the therapeutic element when we talk about painting and in that aspect. And also what I wanted to touch on when you were talking about like, like your sip and paint or your twisted paint experience. I really like, sorry if there's feedback, but I really like coming, I, I don't know, like in the painting world, there's this idea of having a style or something like that.
Mhm.
But really, what you're doing is when you're just kind of learning and wanting to do techniques, you're kind of pulling from a whole bunch of other artists, and making things your own in that way. And I really like that aspect. It's almost like a community building of your own, kind of like of your own creation. And it's it gets like filtered through you, but it's this combination of other people's ideas. And I think that's really special. So I don't know if I went off topic, but Don, what do you think about
Not at
that?
all.
I don't think you can go off topic.
Uh-uh.
You can just go on to something else. But I think the takeaway too, and maybe the new revelation that one can apply, is usually painting is considered a solo activity, right?
Mhm.
Someone goes and paints something. Well, what if you painted as a team, right? What if everybody had a brush stroke, just like that soup we talk about? And wouldn't that be cool? Because so many people, again, by themselves, don't feel good about how they paint. And paint can be exchanged for how they talk, how they look, how they do something that they don't feel proficient at or willing to be public about. Well, if you're just putting one stroke on, you're not really making a statement. You're becoming part of a statement with a bunch of other people. So, opportunities like this create team painting. No different where you see people who are Habitat for Humanity, right? And 50, 60 people, could be just anybody and some tradespeople. They put a house up in a day or two, and someone got a house where there was a piece of land, and it would have never happened if someone didn't say, hey, if you're good with bricks or you're good with wood, or hey, whatever it is, you want to carry a pail, we can build a house. And at the end of the day, everybody felt together we could do so much. So why not look at painting now as a group, duo, trio, quartet, and you look at singing, right? It's the same thing. It's just like painting, but you're doing it with your voice instead of with colors. But people, feel colors from music. That's what's so interesting. And people can see music in art, if they look at it the right way. And some art is music. So I mean, so there's so many things that now we can interchange with words. We not only expand the definition, but we expand words with the words to make it even a little bit more richer. And at the end of the day, you're only as good as what you say. the next word comes out of your mouth is going to make someone want to be more attracted to you or less. How you say it, and if you look at yourself as just an artist of service, right? Where you're creating to make people feel better, be better, and hopefully show them they could be just like you if that's their passion. So, Kelly,
I mean,
let me introduce all these people first because
yes, I was just going to say, let's get to some of these comments here.
I'm getting off format.
Shame on you, Don.
Yeah, well, don't take it though. Leslie's here. Always good to see Leslie. Can't wait to see her back on the show. Kinga's here. Great lady. Reach out. She's into some amazing things. Susanna's here. Susanna's got a wonderful story and just has a beautiful way of sharing it. Thank you so much, Susanna. Look forward to having you on the show. Linda's here. Linda's just a great lady. Can't speak highly enough of her, and she's like everybody else, a real family member. So,
yes.
Linda paints with a bold brush. Leslie, painting is visualizing ourselves already having the things we want. For sure.
Absolutely.
If you can visualize it, you can put it down on paper, and sometimes painting is just writing. You're using a pencil or a pen now, and you're just painting in lines as opposed to anything else. So why not make it more creative? Dean's here. Dean's always here. His spirit just lives beyond his presence. Great guy. You got to get to know him. We're going to have him on the show. Offering 1921, Your Invisible Power by Genevieve Behrend, Visualizations. And here's the link. It'll be in the post comments if you want to check it out later. Dean says there is a ticking sound. Yeah, I think it was something. I don't know where it came from, but I don't hear it anymore. Hello, Paul's here. Paul's everywhere. To be here to support you all day. Glad to see Johanna, Renee on the stage. Yeah, you got a lot of fans out there, Johanna. Here's another thing for the book. Susanna, good morning, Dean, Paul. Nice to have circles within circles. Andrea, hope wasn't late. You're never late, Andrea. Did a great show this week. Just a wonderful person. Tuesdays are so much better for Andrea being part of them. Casting your pearls before swine is something I've been reminded of often. My litmus test of who I choose to work with and include in my life. Roxanne. Great words. I've hosted group vision board parties. It's the optimum mastermind and fun.
Love that.
Evening, everyone. Leslie's back with, we also use this at an event where everyone participated in an oil painting during the day, and at the end, someone won it. That's a good
that's cool.
attraction. Painting live creates a sense of being included in the painting process, especially when my drawing skills are not much beyond stick figures. Individual style, right? And be proud of whatever comes through you. And if it's different, maybe it doesn't mean it's worse. How does color affect on moods or the other way around? I will always remember my child's first painting. So colorful, and later do black and white. Well, that is so true, Andrea, because anything you get from a child that they make with their hands, it doesn't matter. The last thing you look at is style or technique. You just know it was from their hands and it was with joy, right? And if people paint with the same way that little kids paint, and people accept their painting in the same way, which is usually encouragement. It gives you something. If it just has your name on it, it's like, here's I put it on my dresser and it'll never leave. And throughout our house, there's nothing of real value except things that are dear to us. Mostly pictures, mostly objects, things that no one else would think would be that valuable, but that's the point.
But they're priceless to you.
That's the key, is what's good for you is good for you. And then hopefully other people see it's good for you and become happy for you,
Mhm.
right? And now you get happy for them, and now you're starting a painting that continues to paint itself going forward. So Kelly, got a lot of comments. I figured we'll break for some insight on your part.
Yeah. So, I mean, just off of the children's art, I mean, I still have the first art piece that I got from my little cousin when I don't know how old he was, but he was young, like 2 or 3. I mean, I still have it though, because I'm like, it's beautiful to me. And I've been in some incredible homes, and my parents, as an example, or my mom and stepdad, they have 13 grandkids. And they were all, of course, when they were real small, would send pictures, paintings, all kinds of stuff in their house that has them. I mean, it looks like a little art gallery with on and that is a space that I'm like, this just makes you feel happy. Like you can't help but be happy. And I think the other thing that was sparking in there, and from the comments that re-sparked, I know that Andrea, you were not late. You arrived when you were supposed to arrive, which it was 11:11, just so you know, when you posted. Um, is at the very beginning I was talking about how because of oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? Tina Turner's death yesterday, that my thought was how she repainted her path. And what I want to give a shout out to Leslie is she had commented on, I don't know if it was a post or something I had commented on, and then she commented, but she was at an Ike and Tina concert back in the early 60s. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I remember that properly. And how they got in a fight on stage, off, and the concert was over. And then to go back to the domestic violence and repainting your path, your journey is, man, if that was happening in public, like so openly, because it was, I don't want to say accepted, because I know that had to offend so many people, but it wasn't something you went after back then. But it's like, man, if that's happening in public, what the heck is happening behind closed doors? Terrifying. And I think to go back to the whole thing of, being a painter, we're all painters of our life. I mean, we're all painters. And one of the other things that came along while both of you were talking was, somebody, when they start to tell you, I want to tell you a story, or I want to paint you a picture, and they tell you a story, or you're reading a book, even, you paint or create imagery in your head. It doesn't have to be on a canvas, external medium. You have so many pictures painted in your mind. And I don't know, I think that's so beautiful, and to really capture, tap into, and go deep with the word. Again, I'm totally interested in what your thoughts were when you first saw the word painting, and what your interpretation was, because I know there will be a lot of differences, which is so cool about having the word as a focus. So I will kick it back over to you now, Johanna.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm interested to see what people's perspectives are on the word painting as well. But one thing that caught my eye is that I really like this idea of repainting your life. And I say this a lot, is that like being a painter or fine artist is not really a profession, it's a lifestyle. You have to set up your life to basically sustain this painting aspect, like it's constantly in your head and you have to do that. And I think just painting in general is kind of the perfect example of how you can repaint or reshape your life, and build a lifestyle that you want, and that gives you meaning, that gives you purpose. And I see that kind of like everywhere, especially on LinkedIn, where there's like these kind of people have these like hidden hobbies or hidden talents or something. And, they're just kind of going to their day job, or they have this other thing, or like, a day job, and where they have this other thing that they would actually really like to be doing. But there's these constructs in their head that kind of hinder them from doing that. And it's just like, you know, I think I think you really can reshape your life and create a lifestyle, whether it's not painting, you know, just kind of like how Don said, whether it's, you know, replace that word with whatever it is that brings you joy. And if it's like your hobby or something, it could be coding, it could be cybersecurity, it could be basket weaving, who knows? But you really can reshape your life. It doesn't have to be like, I don't consider it a profession. I consider it more of a lifestyle, and it's like a lifestyle that brings you joy. And but that's what I got from those kinds of comments and everything. And thanks for everybody for showing up. I see Sia's in the comments and Paul and everything. And Don, what do you think about that? Oh, you're muted.
Don.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to, that's it. So getting right into the question. When you look at a painting, and now I'm starting to see it in many different ways, I just took it for granted. Someone said painting, I see something that has four corners and, you know, stuff in the middle, and that's a painting. Well, now I look at a painting as maybe something that never ends, right? You paint your story and you continue to paint on that. The canvas is never finished. And you can actually paint over your painting if you want to.
Yeah.
Right? You can take an area that you don't want to see anymore. Right? It could have been a house you lived in. It could have been a school you went to that at the time, that's your world. And maybe your world looked kind of not as nice and pleasant as the world you now envision. So why not go and update it? It's not reject it. It's not bury it. It's optimize it. It's like, this tree was pretty cool, but look at this palm tree I put in there, you know? And here's the other thing about paintings, especially when we're talking about kids or relatives or dear people to you. And that could be people that hand things down to you too, that gave you a painting. Maybe it wasn't theirs. Maybe it was in the family a long time. But the beauty of it is, and I'll give you a quick personal story. My grandson went to Vegas with the family, and when he came back, he gave me a keychain with like a chip and my name, you know, Don on it, and then a little dice and blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, I said, every time I'm not with you, when I think of you, I pull out your keychain, you know? And he was so excited that he was able to do that for me. And he knew I was sincere. And he's thinking of, who do I give another keychain to, probably. And, you know, that's what spreads. Is a painting is a gift you give to everybody who sees it, but primarily to you first, right? You want to make yourself happy with your art. And then if anybody gets happy with it, hey, that's gravy, but it doesn't matter. And one painting reflects where you are today. Another painting could reflect where you are tomorrow. But if everybody started painting here, tomorrow we'd have a lot of painting stories. And the question would be, what did people replace with their painting?
Right.
You know? So what do you think, Kelly? Well, we've got a lot of good comments.
Yeah, let's hit those first.
Paul says, I remember one of my first award dinners I got invited to for my banking career. There was someone who painted a portrait of me, and instead of keeping it for myself, I have to my branch manager. Now she always has that painting to think of me. Well, you know, that's so cool because you're already involving people. Saya's here. Hey, hey, hey. Got your fan club. Saya's got a show. You got to check it out. With some wonderful people, and I'm so much into exchanging and accepting and engaging everybody who's got a beautiful story. You know, no one should be limited in any way in where they paint and how they paint. Olu's, Don, a mail an item you raised in our Zoom chat. Kindly get back to me. Sure will. So too many live streams. Got it. Thanks, Cynthia. Let's see if we have something. Roxanne. Painting is the ultimate example of who controls the finished product. It's the artist. Yeah. Well, so right. Yes. Leslie says, off to standing. Okay, thanks for being here, Leslie. With that, Kelly, what's your continuing thoughts?
Well, first off, I want to say I was one of those kids when I went to any of those tchotchke stores with the names on different items. I could never find my name because Kelly is not spelled normally K-E-L-L-E, so there's not a big market for it. And as a kid, it used to upset me. But as an adult, I do think now I see it on an occasion, but I'm like, it was just because I was unique and I didn't fall into the norm. And that's how my parents always told it to me so that I felt better about not feeling included, because that can make you feel something in a insecurity way. But as far as the painting part, there's just so many things. Rita had a comment that she said, life gives us a big painting opportunity. And I could not agree more. And I think the mind that some of us may have not had previously will make you now think differently. I'm painting every day, every minute that I live. What is it going to look like? I'm going to make that decision or that choice. And to go back to what Johanna was talking about, art is also used for emotional health, particularly with veterans. And again, I'm thinking about that because it's Memorial Day weekend. And I am rocking my Black Rifle t-shirt today. But I think what it does for them is it allows them to escape some of the pain of their reality and what they're trying to do. And it gives them a sense of security and emotional support. And even thinking about that, it's like, wow. I mean, it's so incredible that just a brush and a palette of different colors does that. But it does. And I also love what you said, Johanna, that it is a lifestyle. Like, that's beautiful because we are all artists. It's just a matter of how we interpret things. And the other thing, and I don't know if I already said this, so I apologize if it's a repeat, but when we tell stories, like what we're doing right now, everybody in their mind is painting what's happening or what they're reading. And I guarantee you are all painting a different picture, which is beautiful. So that all being said, I will turn it back over to you, Johanna.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like what you said about sorry, but like self-expression and everything. And I think that's important to note, like how you express yourself, like for the better, if that makes sense. Like being on here, I'm a shy person. Dawn knows that. I'm pretty introverted. And so, but like my best ideas and the way I can communicate best with people is through painting, is through art. And so again, if we replace painting with whatever it may be, it could be writing or however you best communicate, I think you should go for it and then build your lifestyle around that. And another thing I like to consider is that like your lifestyle painting is a practice. You know, I really I don't like when people are like, you're so talented or something like that. It's a practice. Like you have to practice every day, like at your skill. It's a skill just like anything else. And when we turn that into, if we're building a lifestyle for the better, it's still a practice. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. You're going to feel moody one day. You're going to feel awesome the next. And it's just really therapeutic that way. If you consider painting or doing really anything creative or building your lifestyle the way you want, more as a practice, more as a study, and really examining that, that's where the growth happens.
Yeah,
So
love that. And I just, before we go back to you, Dawn, I just wanted to give the other thought that I had as far as the writing being painting and a practice. Now that you said practice, because journaling is a painting. Yeah. You're putting on paper what I want this day to look like. So I'm painting it even though I'm writing it. So I just wanted to toss that in before we go back to you, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're muted.
You're muted again.
I'm getting faster at getting unmuted now. I was than I was before. So my thoughts are, when you're painting, again, to Johanna's point, I would rather paint every day and be considered mediocre than paint once a year and be considered an artist or a master, right? Because, there's a saying, art is in the eye of the beholder, right? So what looks kind of like weird to you looks perfect to somebody else. And that's the way it should, because it's personalized. And I think you want to get into what was the artist thinking, not just what were they showing. And the other thing, to Kelly's point, which I think is so important, is painting is an expression. It expresses, it gets things out of you. It opens it up, and it, gives you some room, but it also expands its exposure. And, to Johanna's point of being shy, and we have talked about it, is you can't, it's like painting, the practice, right? The more you do it, the more comfortable you become. And what's so cool about it is, once you succeed, and you always will if you keep trying and keep being open to change, and more importantly, to help, right? And it's where you go, just like where you distribute your painting, right? If you're going to show your art to an unfriendly crowd or an unfamiliar crowd who doesn't even get into that stuff, then it's just misdirection. It's not a judgment. And, if you can be happy with yourself, you can be happy pretty much with anything you do with yourself. And I think that's the key. If I'm happy, my paintings will be happy. May not be that good, but it'll be sunshines and smiley faces. And, also paint, you also see in front of you. Just, I think it's a super extension over writing something down gives it power. Painting something down gives it superpower, right? Because now you're throwing colors in and brush strokes and perspective. I actually did take an art appreciation class one time, and I was fascinated by it. I really was, because there's so many things you can learn in a small part of time that will give you context and make you conversational, right? It might lead you to one day being really good at it. So, I think painting now has given us all a thread that ripples through all kinds of thoughts, beliefs, words, and maybe when you mix it all up again like a blender, right, make a smoothie out of it, what comes out of it is really cool stuff. Kelly?
Love that. Yeah, and I think another important thing that you said earlier that I wanted to hit on, and you just sparked it again, was when you look at art, and again, I've been blessed and I've been to some of the most incredible art museums in the world, and my parents always exposed us to something that was different. And sometimes I would look, when you're a kid, you're like, why is that behind glass and why does it have guards? Like, why is that painting so important? I don't understand. But now, as an adult, of course, being exposed to it as well and looking at it from a different perspective of, like you were saying, Johanna, it's a practice, because you're vulnerable on that canvas or whatever medium that you're putting your artwork on and whatever you're using to paint. So I was just sort of like, man, I want to know what was going through their mind when they were painting this. Like, I'm just always so curious. Like, what were they thinking? Or even looking at some that has, they're funky with all those different textures and layers and like random pieces thrown on there, a belt buckle or weird things. And I would look at it and be like, how do you know when you're done? Because it feels like this should be edited, or how do you know? Because I know how I write a lot of times, if I didn't just go with it sometimes, that I would wait till I thought I could find perfection, but we're never going to find perfection because we're perfectly imperfect. That's the same with art, but I love the whole thing of it being used for emotional therapy. And the irony too, I have a Zoom call with a gal that what she does is turns emotions into painting.
Oh.
And I was just so intrigued by that because I've also recently met some local artists in Arizona that they come to events or meetings. One of them came to our advisory board meeting, and she did her digital artwork of what was talked about in the meeting, and of course had little caricatures of who was there. It was fantastic because it encaptured not just the topics that were discussed, so you could go back to, but you actually felt it all over again when you looked at it. And another artist that does this, she goes to events more so, but does do business interpretations. And she went to an event that Kendra Maples ran. She's a regular here also in chat and has been on before. Sure, her artist at that big event, she did a totally different style, but it was the same. You felt something when you looked at it afterwards. It's not just about here's the notes and the highlights of what went on because, ho hum, that's so boring. And it's not inspiring in a way of like, but when you see the art of those things, and particularly in business, it kind of makes you excited to go do those things because you're feeling happy and feeling whatever it was that, the energy that was at the table. So I just thought that was super fascinating and interesting. So with that being said, it's now back to you, John.
No, I'm going to piggyback off of that because I think painting and art in general is like a great connector, even if it's not, it's so much in that group setting. Because like I said, I'm introverted or whatever, and I think there's a lot of artists out there online and everything, and just creators that are super shy and stuff. But I use like LinkedIn or whatever as that connection platform, and I think how painting and art in general can just be such a great connector. It's such a good feeling to put this expression out into the world and then have other people relate to it or say they see something in it or it makes them feel a certain way. And it's that moment of connection that it just really brings you back to keep doing it. It keeps, like stimulating that want and desire to feel connected. And so that there's just like that therapeutic aspect of it as well. And I really like what I think it's LinkedIn user. I believe they're Roxanne, but they said over here that you learn by doing and experimenting. And I love that. And that like you have to sometimes step back to gain perspective and everything. That's a really great comment, Roxanne, because it is, painting is that like it's a verb, it's a doing word, and it really is about experimenting. And if you can apply that just to your life in general, just like experimenting, nobody knows what they're doing. If anybody's like coming around being like, I have it all figured out, like I'm just like, well, I don't think we could be friends because I don't think you do. It's really like one big experimentation. And I don't know. And one thing that like Dawn made me think of was I think painting really builds any kind of painting, it really is kind of the eye of the beholder. And I encourage anybody who's self-expressing through writing or, oh, yay, Rocky. But through writing or painting to put yourself out there. But it really develops this creative problem solving of achieving goals, if that makes sense. Because if you're painting, you have this vision in your mind, right? And it's so abstract. And then when you finally put it on paper or on canvas and you can see it, it's not like what you saw in your mind. It really isn't, but it manifested right there in front of you. And so often we have these like these kind of abstract goals that we don't know how to achieve, whether it's like not painting, it could just be business related, but painting or writing or whatever kind of creative process really helps you tackle your goals in a different way, if that makes sense. So I don't know. That's just my rant.
And I think that was part of the therapeutic part with the veterans, that they paint. Part of the goal, or what is achieved through that experience for them, is it helps them problem solve.
Yeah.
So it is just, it's incredible. I mean, honestly, again, that I just geek out over what a word can turn into and open your mind into, and what it is. And just to say, it's interesting because I know many artists or creatives that are super introverted, and their art is amazing. But it's interesting because you're so introverted, but you're putting your vulnerability out there for the world. You know what I mean? It almost feels like, but you're living it through your art and or practice, which I think is beautiful. So, hi, Rocky. So glad you're here. And Dawn,
yeah,
I'll turn it back
so
over to you.
here's what I'd like to piggyback on everything everybody's saying and commenting. If you look at painting, it goes back before language, right? It's the paintings on the cave walls.
Yep.
When people couldn't talk, they tried to demonstrate things with charcoal or whatever they had to do their cave wall things. And if you look at just improv, right? People are sharing pictures through their hands and not using words. I mean, not improv, but whatever you call that game, charades. Uh, you know, people are trying to communicate, and the key is just like what you communicate, where you communicate, how you communicate can apply to paintings. And when you bring out your paintings, right, you can be shy, paint them, and never show them. And it's really the people who share them, because it's like baking a cake, right? You bake a beautiful cake, you want someone to sit down and eat it with you or see how they feel. And that's how you start to feel about your work, is how the feedback is, and you learn from it. And it's not just the doing, the practice, it's the thinking of what you're doing and what you could be changing. And if you look at yourself as a work in progress that should never end, then every day is a step towards something, or a step towards learning something to get a step towards something. And I think if people are kinder to themselves, share more of themselves in any way they can express it, poetry, painting, whatever it is, you got a gift, leverage it. So we've got a couple more comments. Dr. Constance is here. How are you doing? Okay, everybody's loving everybody. That's so wonderful. Here we go. Paul says, yeah, I wonder that too. I'm not so sure, Johanna, Renee, you shared so much today. And honestly, you're so natural.
Okay, good.
And
so genuine
and giving, that I think that's what people want to be extroverted about, is not how they show up, but what they provide when they show up. And how much appreciation and love and caring people have for each other. You know what I mean? Because that's painting a rainbow and love hearts all over the place. And how can you help go to wherever you're going next, or whoever you're going next with, and not carry some of this with you? And paint in your heart, not just from your heart. Put a beautiful picture there that you can't wait to get to. And I think that's why those memories, that little picture, and when you get older, you start seeing pictures where you were in them when you were younger. Everybody else was your age, and that's kind of cool. And I can actually close my eyes and be there for a little bit after seeing that picture, and hear those people and feel them to this day. So when art continues to pay you more and more, the more you engage it a little deeper, it gets much richer. And I think that's what I'm learning about this show and speaking, is slower is better than faster. Calmer, comfortable is more than pushing or that, and it takes a while. But just like I would assume painting, you got to have a touch for it eventually, right? just like music. Eventually, your fingers kind of like meld with the brush and the painting, and you become one. So, Kelly, I don't want to get too existential, if that's what you call it.
No, I think it's awesome. While you were saying all that, here's another thing that art does. I I was raised Catholic, so my brother and I, we did go to public school because my dad didn't want us. He went to Catholic school and he was like, I don't want my kids going through that. But we had to go to CCD, and I still have my CCD books, and they're from like second grade. So I was very young, and on some of the pages, you colored and you drew your interpretation of certain things, whether it was, Jesus or what's your favorite thing. And I also came across this big picture that I drew of like all my favorite things, and you had to associate it to a topic. And it said like, what's your favorite thing to do? And I actually drew with the people in the stands. They were just dots, but I mean, the interpretation of. And I was like watching the wide world of sports or any sports with my dad. And I was like, God, that is so cute and funny. I love that. And then the other one was something about how do you see yourself in the future? And who are you, aiming to resonate towards? And I put my dad behind this desk, and of course the desk went through his body, which was so great. But it just made me look back and be like, wow, I love how I loved my dad. I mean, and I mean, I was totally daddy's little girl, there's no doubt. But it brings me such joy now because he was taken way too soon. I was still a teenager, but I find so much joy looking back at those. And I moved. So it was just kind of interesting. And I always feel like every time I've moved, something that I haven't seen in a very long time, oddly, comes to the forefront. And it's usually some kind of artwork or written sentiment from my dad. And I'm always like, God, because he's here still with me. And I believe that. And I believe that is art. And he expressed himself on paper as well. And the other thing I wanted to go on was the whole introvert thing, because I agree. And most people, if you know Myers-Briggs, and I'm sure many of you do, I'm an INFJ. And I've had people be like, there's no way you're an introvert. You're totally extroverted. I'm like, that's not true, because I'm even balanced really on the scale. So I'm very close to center of both, but I go toward introvert because in order for me to rejuvenate or get back to my center, and I need alone time. I need downtime. And honestly, I was so grateful to learn that many years ago, because then I was like, this is why I want to be doing this on Sundays. I make it a practice that I spend Sundays being down and away from stuff. And I've done that for years and years and years, and just needing me time. So that was part of it. I just thought I'd throw that in as an extra little something. So what are your thoughts, Johanna?
Yeah, no, I can totally relate. Like, a lot of people are like, you're not introverted. I'm like, I get so drained. Like, after this live, I'm going to go sleep for like 10 hours. That's what's going to happen. So, and I'm the type of person that, if my credit card doesn't work at the gas station and it says go see a cashier, like, I will drive to a different gas station just so I can not talk to anybody. So, but yeah, you need a lot of alone time, and I fill up my alone time with painting, to be honest. Like, it's the best alone time, but kind of also still piggybacking off of what you said. It's a painting, and I really like this cohesiveness with writing too, because I journal, and I actually, when I keep a sketchbook or anything, I consider it like a visual journal. There's even words in there, words that inspire me, kind of things like that. But and it's such a great thing of like record keeping or mementos and stuff. And so yeah, I have a couple of those things for my dad too, and it's just really nice to think like, oh, I think he's still with me, or or he was creative and he drew this or that kind of thing. So it's really cool to have those things. And then you can like kind of like how Don said, like pass those things on. So I don't know, painting and writing and things like that, like letters. Like I wish I had a pen pal. Does that make sense? Like old school pen pal, write letters with and keep those as mementos. It's sounds romantic, but it's really cool. But anyways, that's just where my brain went. What about you, Don?
Well, you know what strikes me, and we're getting to top of hour, is what a unique and interesting painting you have that you share with the audience and who you are. And I think at some point, a person starts accepting the audience's opinion of themselves. Where, hey, if everybody loves this and everybody thinks so well of it, well, let's just assume that's the way it should be, right? And someone decides by consensus, I'm not shy anymore. Uh, but the most important thing about painting is fun, is enjoyment, is the fun of the doing of it, the expressing of it. Too many people get into the material side of it, the fame side of it, the status, the elite part. I mean, it takes so much away from so many people, and it does make people not want to do it if they're judged. I was at one of those sip and paint things, and and ask anybody, including myself, the only thing I can do with my hands is eat. Everything else is real challenge for me. But
well, that is a form of art, Don.
Yeah, well, and even I don't eat, the fork and knife is not always used properly, but we decided when we were doing it, they would give you a picture and they would say, paint it. And a lot of people came pretty close to the picture. And mine was like, no one understood what it was. It had no resemblance to the picture, but I decided to paint the picture the way I wanted the picture to be instead of what the picture was. Not anybody. So the point is everybody laughed and made a joke about it, is how did you come up with this? And you know what solved everything is I laughed even harder.
Sure.
And said, I'm just here to have fun. I didn't get into technique or what it was.
Right.
So I think that's one of the keys. So kind of wrapping up, we've got a few more comments. Here's a new name I'm not familiar with. Thank you so much.
Hey, Natalie.
Oh, look, you got a pen pal. Here we go. Yeah, see, all I got to do is say it and it happens. Okay, I'm one step behind here. I will watch the end and catch the replay. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you whenever you can make it, and connect everybody. Look at who's here. Look at their profiles. If they're aligned, connect with them. If there's something you enjoyed today or profited from, share it with the person. Make them know their painting was seen and it was valued. And I think that's when we look at, the other side of painting is the appreciation from the person who views it. And someone put a lot of time, a lot of thought, and a lot of them into that painting. And I think people should know that first. And the other thing I always say about critics, nobody's ever built a statue for one. And I never take advice from anybody who is criticizing what I'm doing that they've never done or never will do. Right? So it's like, where do you come to doing that? So with that said, Johanna, I'll let Kelle have final words. What's your experience and your takeaway from today?
No, it's great. I love it. It's great to practice being social. Thanks, Don. So, yeah, and that's exactly it with like, critique from anything from anybody. It's just like, unless it's like really constructive and positive, then I just let it go in one ear and out the other, because it's like, like you have to be in my shoes and that kind of thing. But other than that, like wrapping up, thank you so much for having me on here. And it's really opened my mind like up to the different perspectives of painting and And you really forefronted that conversation, Kelle. So thanks for being here too and helping me not be so shy. And I'll let you go, Kelle.
Yes, girl, you rocked it. Um, so grateful. And you've opened all of our minds, I guarantee you, to different perspectives. And I think the most important thing, because you both were just talking about critics, because I'm like you, I'm like, if you can be a critic on something you've never done before, you have no idea what my story is now maybe just look at art a little bit differently in the sense of be curious about it. Don't try to rip it apart, because usually people criticize something because they need to demean it because it's something in them that hasn't been healed or done. So it's not about you, it's about them. So I'm totally with you, Johanna. Like I let it go in one ear and out the other. I probably in my younger years would carry it for a while before I let it go. And it's so easy to let it go. I mean, once you do it, it's like, God, why did I carry that so long? Or why did I wear that stupid jacket that wasn't serving me? So I just think this has been incredible. I think we've painted a beautiful picture today together, and which gives me goosebumps. I mean, I just think it's fantastic. I will end with go out and paint your day beautiful. And then, of course, I have to end my normal way. Go out and shine so bright, which is also a painting, actually, that others can't help but shine too.
Well, everything, and you two were just wonderful, and we did paint a beautiful masterpiece. And what's so encouraging about it, it will continue to be displayed and exhibited for years to come on YouTube, on here, so it'll always see the light of day. And if it inspires anybody, and has inspired me now, when someone will say painting, I'll be supercharged with all kinds of context and meanings and everything else. And I guarantee you, consciously or subconsciously, you're going to look at some more paintings or pictures today and look at them a little bit differently. And hopefully, and I think a lot of artists would appreciate to look at artists in a better way, in a more supportive way, and what they contribute to the environment, the culture, the understandings, because some people honestly are visually oriented. You can talk all day to them and they don't quite get it. You show them a simple picture maybe, and it's like everything changes. And that's why they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and a painting is can be a picture too. But you get the meaning is, I think there's more to everything if we give ourselves time to discover it, talk about it, and then expand all of us. I mean, it's great when everybody goes to the gym and no matter what they do, everybody gets more muscles for it, and I hope we can continue to do that here. So in closing, thank you so much, Johanna. Love to have you back. You were just perfect. Yeah. And Kelle, can't thank you enough.
My pleasure always. And I do want to add one more thing, because I'm not scheduled till next week on Thursday again. For all of our veterans or veteran families, just wishing you a very happy Memorial Day weekend and thanking you all for your service, because this doesn't apply just to the service members, but also their families. So thank you.
Well, thank you for reminding us, because it is so important. There's so many people who do so much, just like artists and beyond, who don't get the proper credit, respect. The sacrifices people make for other people's safety and happiness is untold, and that should be part of our message, right? Is to shine the light on the people who always deserved it, but never really got enough of it. So mission going forward. With that said, have a lovely day, everybody. Come back tomorrow in 23 hours. I'll tell you real quick who's going to be here. It's going to be Harvey and me. And then Saturday. Friday. Yeah, that's Friday is Harvey. And you can see the rest. We're over time. So anyway, thank you so much. See you tomorrow.